Okay, let's look at some examples of how to describe some data displays. For this first one, the number of text messages sent, you can see that there are two modes. So we will describe this graph as bimodal. We can also say that most of the data is on the left, but it does have some data that is skewed to the right. So this is going to be bimodal, skewed right. Remember, it's the direction of the tail that tells you how it's skewed. And because we have some data points pulling most of the data to the right and getting larger, that is pulling the mean, and the mean is becoming greater than the median. On our second example, we see most of the data is on the right side, but we do have some data that's pulling it down toward the left. So first of all, we have bimodal, two modes, and our tail is going to the left. And so we say this is skewed left. It's pulling the average down. So the average or the mean is going to be less than the median. Our next example, we have, you could either say unimodal for this one, or this one is almost the same. So either one, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's unimodal, one mode. Most of the data is on the right side with a tail that's going to the left. So it is skewed left. That means the median is being pulled down and it becomes less than the median. On this fourth example, we have a unimodal and our data is pretty symmetrical. So we can say this is the bell-shaped curve. So bell-shaped. And that includes being symmetrical and one mode. And with that, the mean is going to be equal to your median. So it's not being pulled down one way or the other. So let's fill in our summary. So bell-shaped, we just saw, looks something like this. And our mean and median are the same. Skewed left means that most of the data is on the right with a tail going toward the left. So most of the data is on the right with the tail going to the left, pulling the mean down, and it becomes smaller than the median. Skewed right means most of the data is on the left with the tail going to the right, pulling our mean to become greater than the median. Uniform, all of the data is about the same, and the mean and the median will be the same. So on this next part, make sure you pause the video and write this sentence down. This is the sentences that you will use to describe. This includes the acronym SOX that we went over. Let me change this color so we can see this. So SOX is the acronym that we're going to use to make sure that we incorporate all the components to describe our data display. The first S describes the shape, okay? Either it's symmetrical or not, and how many modes it has. The O stands for a possible outlier or not, so make sure you use the upper and lower fence formulas to see if there is an outlier. If there is an outlier, include what that outlier is. The C stands for which measure of center you would use, and then also the center number itself. And then the S, the second S, stands for the measure of spread that's to be used, and then that spread number. So remember, you're going to use mean and MAD if there's no outlier, and you're going to use median and IQR if there is an outlier. So this first set of data, we can calculate specifics, but just looking at this graph, we can see that it's symmetrical and it's bell-shaped. It's unimodal and symmetrical, so it's bell-shaped. So right now, if you want to calculate all this information, you can do that and pause. I have already calculated myself, so I'm going to just write in, but if you needed a refresher from 7-1, this would be a good time. So the mean for this was 81.9. sometimes I want to round and sometimes I'm not. I'm going to round to 82. And then the median was also 82. So you can see how it was symmetrical and both these are the same. The 5-stat summary is 70, 77.5, 82, 88, and 92. The MAD I calculated, and I'm not going to round, I got 5.2. The IQR is 10.5. I did use the formulas, and the lower fence, I got 92 is less than, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. I was looking at the upper fence. So I got 70 is less than 61.75. So we know that that is not an outlier. And on the upper end, I got 92 is greater than 103.75. So there is no outlier. So the distribution is bell-shaped with no outlier. The center we're going to use is mean since there's no outlier. So the mean is 82 with, and then we're going to use a MAD instead of the IQR since there's no outlier with a MAD of 5.2. So that's all you have to do to describe it. Okay, here on science grades, again, you can see the data is skewed to the left. Most of the data is on the right, but it's skewed left. The information that I have already calculated, I did that ahead of time. And again, if you still need to practice, you could pause the video and put this in your TI-30XS. The mean I got was 87.3, so I'm just going to say 87. My median is 90. The 5-stat summary is 60, 82, 90, 94, and 97. The MAD was 5.7. My IQR is 12. The lower fence inequality says 60 is less than 64. That is true. So we do have an outlier. The upper fence, though, 97 is greater than 112. So that is not an outlier. So the distribution is we have one mode, unimodal, skewed left, because the tail is going left, with an outlier of 60. Since we have the outlier, the center is going to be the median. We're going to use the median. The median is 90. And then the center will use the IQR with an IQR of 12. Let's look at our third example. So this time, most of the data is on the left side, and we do have some that's pulling it to the right, just a few. Again, I've already pre-calculated this using my multi-view calculator. The mean, since these numbers are small, I am not going to round on this mean, 1.65. My median is a 1, and my 5-stat summary is 0, 1, 1, 2, and 6. So let's just remember, 0 is my minimum, 6 is my maximum. This one is my quartile 1. This one is quartile 2, or the median, and this 2 is quartile 3. My MAD is 1.015. So we can see that the distance each data point from the mean is very close. My IQR is 1. The lower fence inequality is 0 is less than negative 0.5. That is false. That is not an outlier. However, the upper fence says 6 is greater than 3.5. That is true, so 6 is an outlier. So the distribution, you could say unimodal, but I'm going to go ahead and say bimodal because these are pretty much close and everything else is way lower. So is bimodal, skewed right with an outlier of 6. Since there's an outlier for the center, I'm going to use the median, which is 1, and the spread measure is IQR of 1. Here we can see our data is uniform. Nothing has been pulled left or right. The mean, flip my notes. So my mean is 79. My median is 79, makes sense. My 5-stat summary is 78, 78, 79, 80, and 80. My MAD is very small, is 0.6 repeating. My IQR is 2. My lower fence was 78, is less than 75. That is not an outlier. And then I had 80 is greater than 83, not an outlier. The distribution is uniform with no outlier. So we're just going to use the mean. The mean is 79, and since mean and median are the same, it really doesn't matter, with a MAD of 0.6 repeating. Our last one, hours of sleep. Let's look at the data to see if we think this pulled any data down. I know all of the data is mainly on the right, and we may have it been pulled this way a little bit, but I have a lot of data going this way. So let's just see the mean and the median. So for here, I got a mean of 6.1. So I'm just going to say 6, and my median is 6. So it's kind of, since these are the same, I just may, and let's see if there is an outlier. Let's go ahead and do that first. Okay, so my 5-stat summary is 1, 5.5, 6, 7, and then 8. So I have my minimum, my maximum, my Q1, Q2, Q3. My MAD is 1. My IQR is 1.5. My lower fence says 1 is less than 3.25. That is true. So this is an outlier. So it is pulling the data down a little bit, but it really doesn't pull. Now we did round a little bit. So the exact average was 6.1, but it really didn't pull it down. So well, let's just continue. So this is an outlier. And then I have my upper fence. It says 8 is greater than 9.25. I know there's one data value to the left, but most all of this, and there's nothing in between, there's just a big gap. This is kind of almost symmetrical. So I'm going to say it's, let's say it's unimodal and symmetrical or symmetric, which means we could have just said bell-shaped with an outlier of 1. Since there's an outlier, I'm going to use the median. The median is 6 with an IQR of 1.5. So if you put unimodal and skewed left, I totally understand because you have this one data value here. So either way is fine with me. Just kind of justify your answer and talk it through.